In the past week, Ritidian family members have expressed their concern over controversial HR-4402, introduced by Congresswoman Madeleine Bordallo.
We walked out of that meeting with very positive feelings that the Ritidian family's best interests would be something that she would keep in mind for future reference. But not a mention of that bill, which was proposed in Congress on April 4th, the day before we met, was ever brought up in our meeting with the Congresswoman.
Second-generation descendants like Christopher Bordallo spoke during a public roundtable on the draft SEIS, where Ritidian families felt they were blindsided by Bordallo's bill. He tells KOAM that on Monday, Bordallo held a teleconference with Ritidian families personally apologizing for not making them aware of the bill's introduction. H.R. 4402 would authorize the Secretary of the Navy to establish a surface danger zone over the Guam National Wildlife Refuge to support the operation of a live fire training range complex at Northwest Field. Yesterday's teleconference follows a public hearing during a congressional subcommittee last week where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Department of the Navy provided testimony. Joint Guam Program Office Director Joseph Ludovici spoke on addressing interagency conflicts between the two organizations.
So we are about to start our public meetings on Guam in May. With our draft SEIS that was released 2 weeks ago, we are in the process of collecting all the input. We are targeting getting a final decision on an alternative sometime this fall. If I have to change from my current preferred alternative to select some other options, I'm a year extending my overall process. I cannot afford a year extension based on the domino effect on our agreement with Japan and consolidating Marine Corps bases in Okinawa.
National Wildlife Refuge System Chief James Kurth, meanwhile, says they have no interest in stalling the buildup.
We don't have any interest in holding up the Marine Corps from their mission. I think that we're in the public comment period. The service will provide detailed comments on the draft supplemental EIS. We also will have to consult under Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. And the intention from the Fish and Wildlife Service is to have all that information to the Navy in time so they can make a decision that meets their time schedule.
Kurth, however, added that if H.R. 4402 is enacted, it would impact the wildlife refuge on Guam. Subcommittee Chairman John Fleming, however, questioned if the live fire training range is located at Northwest Field, should there be further discussions on a land transfer instead of authorizing closures for the refuge?
I think it's very similar to the answer that was given about paying for the facilities. We're at the beginning of what's going to be some detailed discussions about the best end outcome here, and I don't want to, publicly propose, options that my colleagues and I haven't had a chance to discuss. But they've signaled a willingness to discuss a wide range of options that would allow us to, continue to do good with our conservation mission.
As you reported, Ritidian families have fought for the return of their land after it was taken under eminent domain in 1963. In 1993, Ritidian was deemed excess by the U.S. military. However, instead of it being returned to the original landowners, it was taken by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and turned into the wildlife refuge. Bordallo says this continues to be a primary concern for Ritidian families. He tells KOAM he'll wait to see how the issue pans out, especially as the public meetings take place for the SEIS. He will, however, be submitting written testimony on H.R. 4402, which is due on May 13th. You can submit comment to Bordallo's district office in Hagåtña. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Ken Quintaniza.